Good evening, relatives. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NDN Live. I am Lorenzo, the Director of Tactical Media with NDN Collective, and I'll be hosting this evening's conversation with Votan, a Nahua and Maya artist, muralist, and designer of the Defend Blanket. And if you haven't seen the Defend Blanket, we're going to check it out together in a moment, so let's just bear with me. And again, thanks for Votan for joining us. Before we jump into this episode, though, it would be great to just have our viewers drop a hello in the chat. Say hello. Let us know where you're tuning in from, whose territory you're on, whose tribal territory are you on. Take a look. You can look it up. There's apps for it. Go check that out. Let us know. And then which communities or tribal nations do you represent? Like, let us know in the chat. We have some people in there who will be engaging with you, saying hello. And yeah, and also I know that chats can get pretty heated, opinions can get pretty heated. So let's try to be good relatives to each other, talk to each other, and try to work our way through these things. And just let's try to be good. It's not get too hot in there. And then today's also a special day. It's actually World Art Day, and we're here to talk to an Indigenous artist who has made his career out of merging art and activism. And we're going to be talking about that. And also today, we all know what's taking place in Minnesota. And also, if you've been following along, what's going on in Chicago. And I'm calling from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I want to just kind of extend my condolences and acknowledge these things that are happening around us. The trauma that is really in our city right now. And I'm sure in Chicago, through the different communities who have lost lives to police violence, and also to the families and people connected to the people who are lost. I've never been able to understand what justice looks like after a family member is taken. I can never understand what that is. And so I can't understand what that struggle would be like. And I just want to know that I'm here. And I've been in the streets the last few days to just, so, we're be in solidarity. And it's just an emotional time. Like I can't have words. I was going to write something down to say this in a good way. And I was like, I'm not going to bother because it's just too raw. We're surrounded by this reality. But today we're going to talk about art. We're going to talk about activism, and I'm hoping that through this conversation we can walk away with some more ways to navigate the world around us as it unfolds in sometimes really dark ways, as it has been what feels like recently here in Minneapolis, as the police are trying to show how the system can provide justice for one police officer who took a life, and in the midst of that, another police officer took a life. And so this just wants them to just my love to everyone who's been affected. It's just everyone. I know there's threads connecting so many people. And so thanks for this. Hear me out, give me that moment. And today, now I have to get back to where I was at. I got a little sidetracked because I was being bombarded with just the emotional reality. It's just really real. So we're going to talk about the convergence of art and activism. And it feels like today's a great day to do it. I know right now people are in the streets. And the one more thing I want to say too is that whatever movement you're part of is so multifaceted. There's so many different moving parts to it, and art is a big part of it. And so it's important that we're going to take this space to look through that lens for a little bit. And hopefully, like I said, share with some folks some tools to be able to walk and feel and be able to understand how to even navigate the things they're feeling. And thankfully, we have Votan here, who helped us design the Defend Blanket, a project that debuted on International Women's Day last month. The Defend Blanket was a creative collaboration between the NDN Collective and the 8th Generation, and the beautiful blanket design was created by none other than Votan. So I'm just trying to think. Okay, so let me say it. On the Defend Blanket is an Indigenous woman. We're going to actually watch the video. We're going to watch a video together. I'm going to bring Votan on the screen, and then I'm going to have Votan introduce himself. You know what, Votan? Let's have you introduce yourself right now. Give me 1 second. Let's bring Votan on the screen for you all. Votan, do you want to introduce yourself before we watch this video of the blanket?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Votan Henriquez. I am of Maya and Nahua ancestry, and you're gonna play this video right now, right? So you guys can see the collaboration in full effect.
Boom.
Am I gonna get to see it?
Nah. Votan can't see the video you're all watching, but you all can see it, so that's good. Maybe I can pause it, right? All right, so yeah, the people can see it. They can see the blanket. They can see you. We're gonna let this video kind of play in the background a little bit. And so, yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about the defend blanket, sort of what inspired you to make it, and what inspired the design behind it.
So, well, I think it was about 2 years ago. I got hit up by Nick Tilson,
Mhm.
director of NDN Collective, and
Yeah, I heard of them a little bit.
he had seen some of my work, some of the murals I've done with the Insurgents Collective, and he was thinking of us doing one on the building where the Indian Collective resides now in Rapid City. So we were throwing around ideas. Several ideas were on the table, and the most impactful one of those ideas was two um, natives protesting, female in the front and male in the back. The female had a bullhorn in her hand and yelling, and then the male had a picketing sign, right behind her. So the idea of that too was to basically resonate with the times today and how women are taking up these powerful positions. And I think it's very important that we stand behind them and support them. So a lot of our work is dedicated to that, to the empowerment of women, and to for us men to allow women to share the space and the basically these positions of power. And I think it's very important that we are able to address that, not just through murals, but even like this blanket and conversations like this. So um, we worked on it back and forth, and for one reason or another, there was all these things that were impeding the mural from basically being done on the building. But now the blanket was released, which was going to be running adjacent to the mural. So it was decided that the blanket should be released first. So once it was released, um, luckily now the Indian Collective, I believe, has purchased the building in Rapid City where we are going to paint the mural after all. So it'll have a lot more detail, but I think the blanket itself came out really beautiful, really powerful. It's rare to see um, that type of imagery on anything these days that people can you know wrap themselves in, or even just have around, besides t-shirts. So I think it's a great way to carry the message across different things as well.
Right on. It's a beautiful blanket, and I really appreciate the. I'm getting really loud here. I appreciate the thought behind it, and putting women in front. Someone holding a sign behind to support them. I feel like, in my experience of being in the front lines, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing women taking up space, forming lines against whatever is trying to move them, or trying to save the earth, trying to stop pipelines. They uh, matriarchs, they're always in the front lines, and in my experience too, from working in a lot of indigenous communities, like we're supposed to seek guidance from women. We're supposed to be like listening and respecting them at all times, and so it's nice to see that represented in this blanket, and to know that it comes from that. I think it's really important.
I mean, if you even look at the way things have changed so much throughout the last 10 years, there's been quite a few movements that have been spearheaded by women. Like Standing Rock with Rest in Power. You
Yeah,
know,
rest in power for sure.
Anna Rabel, who was a beautiful being, an auntie of ours. Honor the Earth, with Winona LaDuke. I mean, Pua Case out in Hawaii. Frida up with,
Tara.
Subitan people.
Yeah.
So even Oak Flat, like, we have a man that has predominantly led it, but he has daughters that are going to basically um, tend to the ropes and take care of that movement down there. So I think it's very important that we are able to voice that as men, and recognize that. And it's beautiful and it's powerful because our most important people in our communities traditionally were our women at some point, and we kind of veered away from that. And I think it's okay for us to accept that change. It's just what it is. I was raised by women, so I struggled a lot with it. Growing up and even listening to a lot of the hip hop music that I was listening to, and a lot of those things I had to be challenged. You know what I mean? My thoughts, my upbringing, my way of thinking, all those things are slowly changing. Some faster than others, but it's just part of the process, and we just have to accept it for what it is. And it's not like from a vengeful perspective. It's like things have to be this way. There has to be a balance. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like, geez, what is it? Like something somewhere in there. Yeah, the work that you're doing, you're doing work to sort of like, a lot of times we use like decolonize, but there's a lot of processes and thoughts that have been like imprinted on us, and I think that how we are taught to treat women in different communities or different place spaces, be it schools, be it college, be it work, like there's always been, it seems like the patriarchy is strong, and so it's not only upon people that the women to smash the patriarchy, but men have to work on it, and people who are socialized as men. Even though my pronouns are they them, I was socialized as a man. That means that just because I have these pronouns doesn't mean that I don't have the patriarchy destroying my perceptions constantly, so I think that while those words are big words and they're hard to unpack, that we're also carrying them, and they're just something to help us understand that they're things that are affecting us that maybe we can't see, that maybe are just a way that we look at somebody that was taught to us without even knowing before. And those are the things that I think that I'm trying to unlearn all the time, even today, so like, thanks for that. So yeah, so talking about art, talking about this blanket, there was a lot of thought that went into it, right? You thought about it before it wasn't like you just woke up and like, right? You thought about it. And I kind
yeah,
of want, yeah.
I mean, so one of the challenges as an artist, as an indigenous artist, I should say,
Mhm.
is how do we address issues that we face as indigenous people that will have an impact, a positive impact on all indigenous people, not just our own, just indigenous people in general. So, most importantly, the fact that we focused on the woman first, I think was crucial, obviously, because if we're talking about traditions and going back to relearning these traditions, we have to acknowledge that. You know what I mean? So that's part of the process. Like we always think, okay, should we put a woman or a man or in the image? And it's something that we feel we have to also make space for people to feel comfortable with, because I did a mural. Let me see, about what, 2 years, maybe, yeah, 2 years ago, I think, in Ecuador, and
Mm.
I went out there for a mural festival. I was out there for a month, and I painted two murals. One in the Amazon, in this community called Zamora Chinchipe, and then the other one was in the coast in Bahia. And the one I painted in the coast was just
Mm.
I just kind of like revamped an image that I had created like years back, probably about 15 to 18 years ago, which is the Rosie the Riveter, which later became popularly known as Resi the Riveter, right? So I was out there. We were talking to the community. They had a community gathering, and women were the ones that were basically dominating the conversation there. And they were like, "Well, a lot of our women have gone missing. They've been murdered. They get beat. Machismo and all this." So I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna paint a woman. Like this is crazy that this is happening here too, so far away from our own reality, right?" So as I painted that piece, they had a little young boy come out and help me, and we were just teasing, messing around. He was like real like Raz, you would say, right? But he was asking me all these different questions about the piece itself, and then as we were like look back and look at it, um, some of the neighbors, which were predominantly men that were hanging out, having beers or whatever, because it was like fairly warm at that time. They would like just watch what I was painting, and they're like, "Why are you painting a woman?" This one guy asked me, and I said, "Oh, because I think it's powerful. I mean, it's empowering and it's powerful that we do that in this community." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because a lot of women are being abused and they've gone missing here. So there's no other way but this way to address something like that, for people to have that conversation, and for young girls, little girls who walk across the street and see this piece with this woman with her fist up, and luckily the wall was, dilapidated and the paint was coming off, so it actually looked like she was breaking through the wall with her fist, right? So
Mm.
I told him, like, hey, we have to empower those that give us birth, you know what I mean? And he was upset. He was like, what about the men that get beat? You know what I mean? What are we gonna
Mm.
do to represent that? Nobody's telling their story. And I was like, okay, yeah, I admit and acknowledge that that exists, but
Mhm.
this is an epidemic. You know what I mean? This is happening way, higher than men being beat. You know what I mean? So I was like, it's unfair and it's very machista of you to come at this piece with that mentality. When in reality, look, you and your homies out here are all kicking it, having beers. Where are your wives at? You know what I mean?
Mm.
Obviously, they're not kicking it outside their house. They're probably cooking. So in a way, it's like, yo, that's got to change. And I'm sorry you feel this way, but those are the facts. Change is coming.
Change is coming. Yeah, and I like wanted to say that they were, even them just being able to hang out. I always hear that as this the and again, I can't really speak to women's experiences. What I can say is that the MIW movement has been transforming to like missing and murdered Indigenous relatives to kind of include more of the fact that like it is an epidemic that's affecting our women, but also like other people are also being affected. And here, where I'm standing in Minnesota, up north, the Stop Line 3 movement, people have been talking about this for a long time and how these work camps bring in people who are abusers and sexual harassment. And they arrested some people who were literally Enbridge workers who were participating in sex trafficking, trying to like trying to get underage women through texts. And they were captured by the force. And it's like, this is the things that we were talking about, but it didn't stop the work camp from happening. And now it happened and it didn't stop it from, it's like nobody wants to be in a position of like, I told you so in these things. Nobody does, and we're constantly put in a position where it's like, this is what we've been saying. And you don't seem to care when it's there right in front of your face. Like it's just a thing that happened. It's in the newspapers and we're wanting it not to happen. We want it not to happen, and we have these ways of asking you that could help us make it not happen. Anyways, sorry, it's a little. I guess infuriating. I get like infuriated all the time because
No,
I
I
do a
mean,
lot of work.
that's what sometimes fuels the art, is the fury, the anger, the frustration. You know what I mean? But also
Mm,
too, like, a lot of our work doesn't necessarily come from that sentiment. It comes also, most importantly, I think, from compassion. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
from empathy, from feeling that pain. You know what I mean? We painted that mural up in Duluth uh,
Mm,
about 4 years ago, I believe. I'm kind of bad with timing when it comes to some of these murals, but we were out there and we got to see that firsthand. We got to experience it. Showing up there was like, whoa, what are we doing in this old, town? Like, this is kind of crazy. It's kind of small, but yet, like, that is prevalent. Like, women had gone missing and are probably continuing to go missing in that area.
yeah.
And you know, for law enforcement not to care, not to you have any suspects, any arrests for this amount of time, is it's crazy. It's like, it's been happening obviously since 1492, you know what I mean? But it almost seems like it's okay for it to happen if it's not white women that are being kidnapped. And there is white women that do get kidnapped, but not to the degree that native women get kidnapped. And it just doesn't happen in Duluth. It's happening here in New Mexico and in all kinds of different states, in Oklahoma. And it also happens in other countries. Look at Juarez, Mexico, right? Like, all the women that have been, found murdered in the desert. And same thing, the police department there is very shady. There's hardly any culprits for these crimes. So in a way, we feel like it's very important that we can bridge all those things that are happening, like what happened in Ecuador with that image that was used here to represent the women here, but then now it's being used to represent the women there, which in reality connects those women. And then we put out an image of, last year with the MMIW, with the, like, paint in her hand, in her face, the red hand in her face,
Mm,
and she has pins on her that basically also speak to those movements, like the women in Juarez, the children in the cages. You know what I mean? she was wearing like a Mauna Kea t-shirt. So all these different things that are happening, we have to be able to make the connections. I feel like we need to be involved with all these things that are happening.
Mm.
You know, we were just having this conversation last night with Vanessa, who is Wensler's daughter from Oak Flat. And we talked about how, it was very popular for a time. Everybody kept talking about Hawaii and Mauna Kea and Pua. And then all of a sudden, people moved on to the next thing. Like, oh, let's talk about Line 3. Well, what about Mauna Kea? What about Oak Flat? You know what I mean? What about Standing Rock? The pipeline's still operating illegally. You know what I mean? So I think that we have to continue to fan these fires so that all these can collectively change at the same time, because we can't be wasting any more time not addressing these issues that we're facing as Indigenous people. Like, we need solutions ASAP.
Yeah, I think like listening to that, like I was in a conversation earlier, talking about Stop Line 3, and a lot of people are talking about like Standing Rock 2.0, and and it's like the way I feel about things is that we're in a continuum, and we can't have Standing Rock 2.0 because there was no DAPL happened, and what's
Mhm.
going to happen next is going to be what we make here, and we're going to bring the past with us to inform the present as we try to make the future. As we try to make the future, and we always got to keep doing that, and we always got to keep allowing everything to change. We have to allow our taxes to change, our tactics to change. Like,
Yeah.
the past happens, we were there, and now we're in the present, and everyone's tactics are changing around us, and we always seem to be kind of like trying to recreate this moment from the past, but the moment is now. That moment happened, this moment is now, and we're bringing it with us. If I'm there, that means my ancestors are there. What I'm saying? Like, we're all coming together, and I hope that it helps a little bit, and it's at least how I view things. It's like it's a continuum, and like I'm always looking into the future. I'm trying to map it. I'm trying to see where we're going to be, and what our lives are going to be like, and what could happen, and how can we be prepared for it. But in the end, it's like I just don't feel I don't know how we recreate the past because it was so beautiful, but I know that we can create the present to be just as beautiful. And we bring in those things, and I think, yeah, I think always the moment is now. As you said, the moment is always now, because there isn't time. Like, I spoke to a young woman who was up at the Stoughton camp. I think it was a pipeline camp holding space, and they had lived out there for a year and a half, and she told me that people looked in there like, when I'm up here, they think I'm making a sacrifice, but I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be here. And I was like, well, what, why? And they're like, right now, our people are the strongest they're going to be. And if we don't do anything, they're just going to take away more of our land.
Mhm.
They're going to take away more of our children. They're going to take away more of our right. Right now, we are the strongest. So we have to work now because to get stronger. And if we don't, they're just going to keep taking little bits away. So the time is always now, and I feel that.
I think even the term sacrifice, like, people tend to
Mm,
think of it negatively, but it's actually a form of love. You know what I mean? Like,
mm,
you sacrifice for your kids. Like, we have 4 kids, and like, we do things that they want to do, because it's their time, it's their moment, and it's okay. It's like, man, I wanted to
yeah.
do this other thing instead, but hey, I got to be a dad. I gotta represent for the kids, and it's okay. Like, there's, even with work, like sacrificing, like painting murals, like, it looks easy, but sometimes it isn't. We run into tons of issues a lot of the times, whether it's weather, whether it's the wrong equipment, injuries. I mean, tons of things, like people wandering the streets. We've gotten robbed from our paint, and
Oh,
always falling
dang.
off the scaffold. Yeah, man, like
That's real.
things like that happens. Like, we were doing 2 murals here with Leah, my partner slash wife, companion, everything you want to call it. And while we were painting, we were doing 2 pieces that were representative of the people from here, the Pueblo people, and like cars were like circling, like, you know what I mean, like MAGA cars, like just
Mm,
revving their engines and stuff. And then, like, a few minutes after that, boom, gunshots like down the street, and I was like, damn, should we leave or should we stay painting? Like, I'm like, all right, let's just take a break for 5 minutes and see what happens. And then boom, we got back on it. You know what I mean? But
mm,
everything you do, there's gonna be some type of equal resisting force to it,
mm,
whether it's the actual work you have to do, right? Like, for example, if you wanna do a mural that's 3 stories high, like, it's gonna take hours to do that. It's gonna take tactics to do that, planning, and the physical work of being out there 10 to 12 hours a day painting. You know what I mean? Sometimes under extreme weather conditions, like whether it's humidity or heat or rain. You take a break or whatever, but you get it done. And when you get it done, you realize it's worth it. I think it's very powerful to be able to put up, images of indigenous people throughout this, continent, because there hardly is anything that represents that. There's no voice and no vision for that. And things are changing now. And I think it's very important that we remind people like that we are really still here. And it's very beautiful to see how people react to these pieces, because it represents them, it represents their story, it represents their presence. And I think that's beautiful, because just like we spoke about the present moment, these murals are always in the present moment.
I'm playing some of your murals, and so people know I didn't tell you. But the images are murals that were made by Votan.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many stories, man. Like I love to share with people about the experiences we have. Like we painted a Shuar warrior in the Amazon. Shuar are one of the unconquered people from the Amazon, and there has been a lot more contact now, but they were one of the uncontacted people long time ago. There's some of those groups that still use the ayahuasca medicine, which they call what are they? Man, I forgot the traditional name, but ayahuasca is like a derogatory name. I apologize for that. Um, but they use this medicine, and they're very powerful. They have a wealth of knowledge of their environment, and they've been basically oppressed by the Ecuadorian government. So the first thing I thought about when I arrived was, okay, like I want to paint a Shuar person, right? And there was other artists that had the same mindset. They're like, yeah, we're gonna paint Shuar young women and a Shuar, medicine woman here. So I was like, okay, I'll paint a Shuar medicine man. So I spent some time with some of the people in the community, and we talked about a lot of different things. And there's this warrior that the Shuar people like honor. His name was Kiru, and he was one of the very few that the Spanish feared, because they were headhunters, right? So
No,
I was like, man, this is cool. Like I'm gonna represent this person. I'm gonna paint this person, and I painted him with a gas mask, right, to represent what's happening in the Amazon with the extraction of all the natural resources, just like here on this side of the continent. And lo and behold, man, it was all a conversation started. Like I met several young men who were Shuar, and one of them told me, he's like, man, when I was a kid, I used to walk down these streets, and when I used to walk down the streets, all these mestizos used to call me Tarzan, or like, hey, isn't it time for you to go back to the jungle? You know what I mean? He's like, and I'm an indigenous person, but now that you've painted this, like I could walk down the street with pride, like this is our land, you know what I mean? So I was like, hell yeah, man, that's what we're here for. Like some of the people that were there, mestizos or whatever, Spanish descendants, they weren't really digging it, but it's not for them. It's for the
yeah,
underdog, you know what I mean? The underrepresented people that are now being represented.
that's right. Um, and so for people who are just joining, maybe you're a little, I don't know exactly what the conversation is about. We're talking about a Votan about the defend blanket, but also art, activism, and a word that you get I've heard before called artivism.
Yeah,
It's like a lot. You're talking about art. You're talking about how its placement in a place changes the space, right? Like
yeah.
this mural here makes everything around it mean something a little different to people. And I guess like what is like how did you come to that? And is that what you mean by artivism? Like how does
So
that work?
artivism is, combining our experiences as activists, being in protests and marches and organizing and, you know, um, creating these programs to give back to individuals in our communities. So that's part of the activism, but we also use art to address all these things. Like for example, the street art, the wheat pasting. That's like artivism to me, because you're taking an experience that you support, and you are like a voice for that. You go out there, and like obviously, it's not an orthodox way of doing it, and there could be penalties for that, but like you take a risk. Just like you take a risk to go to a protest and get arrested, you take a risk in using your own money to go out and wheat paste it and put up these pieces that create conversations with people. And I think that's very important for people
Mhm.
to to see that, to want to Google it, to look it up. What does this mean? What does this represent? And then whether they like it or not, but they're being informed. You know what I mean? And I think that's very important, especially when it comes to the murals. When people see huge, large scale images that they can't relate to, they want to know what it means, what it represents. In Duluth, we showed up there last year and we dropped off some goodies for the kids out there in the community. And we were talking to Michelle LeBeau, who runs the American Indian Community Housing Organization where that mural is painted. And she said, yeah, it was crazy. This guy flew over the building and then he decided to come see it for himself and ask because he saw it from the airplane. So he was wondering what it represented. You know what I mean? And that was kind of cool. Like that's how that conversation and education starts. And it's free, right? It's free education.
It's a head turner. Yeah, and like I was saying, earlier too, there's a lot of art. Like, there's so much art in movements. Movements birth art. Art birth movements.
Mhm.
It's like it's always back and forth, and like I'm not privileging one or the other, but I think that it's like how has art maybe helped you, sort of like doing these pieces? Has it helped you in any way to, I guess, just deal with the fact that we live in this society? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's therapy, to be honest, like when we're painting and you're sticking to a certain thing, a certain pattern, a certain design, and you're spending all this time, all these thoughts and things, go through your head, and it's like kind of like taking a drive too, for like a long distance and just clearing your head from a lot of different things. But also too, I think that learning about what's happening in these places and making it relevant and also making it more public brings satisfaction to the collective, not just myself. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
learning and being involved and staying involved, I think, is what makes you feel like a more purposeful human being. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I could definitely relate, connect, and have family members in all these communities. Like it's one thing to have a brand and produce items for consumption, but it's a whole different ballgame when the community knows you and welcomes you and you're a part of that community and they consider you a member. And I think it's beautiful. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
how you represent them as in many different ways. Like we also went to Dubai. There's a couple of pictures on there where we went to Dubai, and we were talking about that was during the whole Dapple incident, and we were talking about that over there. And that's a petrol rich country. It's
Yeah.
all about the oil in that country. So having that conversation was wild, like Leah says. You know what I mean? Like it was for me. I was like, okay, I gotta sit back and try to feel like I am an indigenous person from here to fully relate and understand what you're trying to tell me, right? And I talked to the director, and we spent a few hours, talking at different times. Um, and he said, when I was a kid, 80% of my food was dates from palms. He's like, that's what we used to eat as kids. 80% of that. Sometimes we'd eat a camel. He's like, but for the most part, we didn't have anything to eat. He goes, now, when, the British came through here and they found oil, like we were already schooled on what was going on in Saudi Arabia and other countries. So we got a sweet deal and our country became rich. Now he's like, I can have food from anywhere in the world. And I was like, yeah, that's cool that you feel that way. But he's like, there was nothing in the desert except for the oil that was under it. And I'm like, that's cool that if that's how you feel. Like I think the desert's beautiful. Like this is part of who you are. It's part of your
Mhm.
being, right? But I told him, but the difference between you here and the American continent and all the oil extraction that's happening there is that there's pristine wilderness, there's rivers, there's waterfalls, there's forests that are being decimated, turned into deserts. You know what I mean? Like you guys are turning a desert into an oasis, a paradise, but we're trying to keep our paradise from turning into a
Yeah.
desert.
Yeah. I spent some time in the South, I think the end of last year, and the desert's just it's beautiful. As it's just says there's something about it that I don't know. I'm just thankful there are people who are trying to care for it. I was there when people were trying to stop the wall from destroying their territories, and yeah, I'm thankful. That there are all these people who are trying to protect these areas. Um, I was gonna say, like, you mentioned. I know I'm just thinking about, you know, how you're saying that things are like they've come from love,
Mhm.
and like, I'm the director of tactical media, and a lot of times I'm just kind of like, it just means like you're gonna cover the thing that's important to you, like, you're gonna love whatever you're doing so hard, you're gonna do it constantly, and like, and then I'm like, and so what I'm talking about then is just making our own media, like making our own stuff, right? Because
Mhm.
who's gonna love our people more than our people? Who's gonna love your community more than your community? And then, that's where we start. And I think that is love. It is what drives at least me, and I have anger, I have rage, I have many emotions, but I know at the end of the day what's driving me is love, and the idea that it's going to hopefully save all of us. It sounds, you hear it all the time. And I remember finally when I got to that idea, like, love will save us. It was like the cheesiest saying ever. It's been said a bajillion times. It's like, oh, good job, Lorenzo. You figured it out.
You know,
Love's going to save us.
it's interesting because like we went through an experience, a few months ago. We were part of the ceremony, and uh, that was the main thing that came from that ceremony was that everything is love, right?
Mm,
And it was very difficult to accept that as an answer because I would think, oh, you sound like the damn Beatles.
yeah.
All you need is love. Like, shut up with that. You know what I mean? But in reality, like they know what they were talking about. As ridiculous as it may sound, love is the most important thing. That's the truth. That's the bottom line. And the opposite of that is fear. Like we have a poster that we were going to put up for Malcolm X's, you know, for his birthday, and it has a picture of Malcolm X, and under him it says love, and then right next to him was J. Edgar Hoover, and it says fear, right? Because
Mm,
he was assassinated at the command of J. Edgar Hoover. Why? Because of fear. Fear of black folks becoming empowered and being equals to white folks. And that's the fear of not wanting someone to have what you have. And the fear is fueled by ego. And ego, as well, is the opposite of love. So love is completely and embodies everything.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I like I said, when I it's almost like you're saying, it was like a Beatles saying, like, obviously people know, they've been trying to tell us, our ancestors, our elders, our relatives, our parents have been trying to tell us, because eventually you fall into it and you just realize that's our only hope. It's like, it's to love each other somehow through all of it,
I
through
mean, look,
all of the madness.
even, growing up, I often tell people, you know, when I was a kid in LA, I was born and raised in LA, and my brother had like socialist ideas, and where my family comes from in Central America, there was a division between socialism and capitalism, right? Like almost
Mm,
everywhere else in the world, but there was a civil war going on. I was born in LA. He was born down there, and he was still with the ideals of what the people were fighting for down there, and he became a member of the Revolutionary Communist Party, right?
mm,
So as as a kid, he was like, "Yo, you guys got to get with the program. You guys gonna become communists." And we're like, "What? Like, we're not even in Russia." You know what I mean? But
yeah.
he basically got us in. Like, they created this youth brigade, the Revolutionary Communist Party Youth Brigade. I don't even know if it's still around,
Oh, it
but
is.
we got schooled hard on, Stephen Biko, on Mao Zedong, on Bobby Seale, the Black Panthers, the American Indian movement, the Zapatistas, all these different movements, right? So
Mm,
I was grateful for all of that, but at the same time, I was skeptical because I just saw all these like, you know, Lenin and Marx and all these white dudes that I was like, who are these dudes? You know what I mean?
yeah.
And at the same time, I was like, okay, I feel like this kind of relates to who we are as indigenous people, but it kind of doesn't in a way. So I stuck to graffiti. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Graffiti and culture, like
yeah.
our indigenous culture, I started to fully understand what was creating this wall, you know what I mean, for me, where I couldn't relate to some of these things. And that wall was basically what socialism and capitalism practice, which is they exploit the land regardless if more get to benefit or less get to benefit. And as indigenous people, those are not our ideals. Our ideals is to live in balance with that. You know what I mean? And we have to relearn that. So, anyways, learning all those different things, I was for a while hooked on like being the next Che Guevara, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I had my little beret and everything, and wore Che t-shirts. I even we created a graffiti crew called FTS, which stands for F the System, and
Mm-hmm.
my tagging name was Che. I was tagging Che because I was all about Che. And then I remember reading about Che, and one of his quotes, to bring it back to the point of love, was that a great revolutionary leads with feelings of love. You know what I mean? So it all comes back to the same thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why do we do this? Why do we engage in this? Because we love other human beings, and we also feel that they need justice and to be respected and to be treated fairly and equally like everybody else.
Yeah, I feel like I have like a similar experience, because like my sort of I think like realization that was similar was like I was getting into like communism and anarchism, reading all the theories, and I was like, wow, I'm this reading a bunch of old white dudes with beards and some women, but it's like all these bearded white men who are supposedly have all the knowledge for freedom.
Yeah,
And I was realizing that there was like nothing I was reading from like on the land I'm on. Like how is there not all the great philosophers of every person who's lived on this territory? Like I wasn't reading that. And then I realized I was like, oh my gosh, all I know about is Rome. I literally went to school and all I learned about was Rome. Why? I'm sitting here, and I was like furious. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like how dare they, just take all this knowledge and this make this the most important stuff. Rome.
I mean,
Anyways,
it's funny that you even say that. That about Rome, and you've probably never even been to Rome. You know what I mean? And same thing with like our languages. Like our
mm,
languages, growing up, like our first child, his name's Tlatoani, and my
mm,
mom was like, not to bash on my mom, you know what I mean? But she was like,
yeah,
why are you going to call him Tlatoani? Why don't you call him like a common Spanish name? And it's like, because that's not our heritage, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
Tlatoani is our language. And at first she was like, making faces about it. But then when she saw how other people would react to it and how white folks loved it, then she became like cool with it. You know what I mean? So the reason I'm bringing this point is because like, how is it that we can pronounce last names or names like Schwarzenegger, right? But
what's
yet
there?
when people, listen to our son's name, our youngest son, Balam Kitse, they have a difficult time trying to pronounce something like that, which means smiling jaguar. Like, why is that hard? How come you can say Schwarzenegger, but you can't say Balam? You can't say Kitse. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's just the process of decolonizing your tongue, is what it is.
Yeah, and I think like I don't, for me too, and all that, it's like I've been wrestling with is like I can speak Spanish, and it's like the people are like you should speak Spanish because that's like but I still feel like that's a colonized language. Like I know Spanish not because I'm from Spain. I mean, there's some blood in me from Spain. It's because I was like my people were conquered by Spanish people, and then we were forced to speak this language. And I'm like, how do I deal with this? Like how do I work my way through this realization and knowing that like the distance between me and any sort of idea of a language of my people could be is so far removed from like what history happened to my people, what history happened to my family. And so I'm always carrying that and trying to navigate it. I don't know where I'll end up.
I think it's something that everybody probably struggles with. There's a lot of Native folks that don't know their traditional language as myself. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And I feel like I make who I am, not the language doesn't make me. You know what I mean? And I also believe that there's also an important thing in the language that it is vital that we should reconnect and learn as much as we possibly can. But also for those that don't have access to that, like not to feel ashamed of that. Like you could still engage in your traditions, and because colonialism was a monster. It completely obliterated languages and cultures and traditions. But I think that's why we felt so free to navigate through the United States. It was because we could relate to so many indigenous nations on this side of the continent that were just like us. They looked like us, they dressed like us, there's words like us, their behavior. So there was a mirror that we were able to experience that made me feel like I'm home. And then having taken a trip to the Hopi reservation, which I had mentioned a couple of days ago, is like, we arrived there with my family. I packed everybody up in a van, and as soon as we arrived to the cultural center, the lady that was there, who was Hopi, was like, "Where are you guys from?" We're like, "Oh, we're from LA," but we're like Maya, and she was like, "Welcome home. You guys are part of our nation. Like, you guys are in our creation stories, right?" So automatically, my mentality of being an immigrant like completely faded. Like, whoa, these people like are us. You know what I mean? These people are who we are. So now we engage in a lot of conversations, but also building on that. Try to bridge constantly whatever we possibly can. Going to the Amazon, going to Central America. We've been to Venezuela, just different places, and we talk about the nations here, and we also would like nations here to go down there. Because there's a lot of things that we've lost living on this side, but there's things that we still have that we can share. And people down there, it's the same thing. Like, they've lost a lot of things, but they could also gain from people that are living up here the traditional ways.
This makes me think. I'm just kind of like, there's so many things I thought about in that. I'm kind of like, where do I go? But I want to share kind of like I don't know if it's a similar moment, but I used to be a server when I was 18 years old. I was like working overnights, serving people food, and this native guy comes in, native like indigenous dude, and he's like, he's rocking it. He has like a cowboy hat, belt buckle. That's his style. He's out there, and he comes up to me, and I'm serving him food. He's like, "Oh, hey, what tribe you from?" And I was like, "Oh, no, 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 I'm Mexican American. I'm not part of any tribe." Because at that time, that's where I was, and sort of my knowledge of myself. And he started laughing, and he goes, "Oh man, they stole your land too." I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, I was like, he just slapped me. I was like, whoa. I went back and was like just thinking about it. I still remember that moment, and I won't forget it. I
Yeah.
won't, because it's true. It's true.
Yeah,
Like my
it's funny because, like, now that you say that, I remember we were sitting at a family party. I can't remember if someone was getting married in my family. It was years back, and like, my hair had been long for a while, but I started braiding it. And
Mhm.
then my aunt, she walked up to me and she's like, "Every time I see you, you look more and more like an Indian." And I was like, What? She's like, "You're spending all that time at those powwows is making you more of an Indian." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, we are native. We're Indians too. You know what I mean?" And it's also funny, like, to observe your family in settings like that. Like when that movie Apocalypto came out, like, my whole family, predominantly the women in my family, my aunts were all sitting around the TV. Some of the kids are like running around and playing, but I was like the only man watching them, and how they would, speak about the movie. And they're like, "Oh, remember? Yeah, we used to eat that," or, "Hey, that looks like such and such place," or, "Look, that looks like so and so," and interrupting the whole movie, right? But once like the killing started happening, they're like, "Damn, those Mayans are savages." You know what I mean? And in a way, I was like, "What?" All of a sudden, you guys aren't related, but you can relate to everything else that's happening in the movie. You know what I mean? And I
Mhm.
realize, I'm like, that's part of, again, colonialism, right? And these stories that are being told are not being told by us as a people. They're being told by someone else who doesn't understand and has this wrong information and keeps promoting it as if it's accurate. Like the whole, we can get into this whole conversation about the human sacrifice too, which I honestly believe was not happening. Yes, there was murder. Yes, there was slaves. There was people that were captured, but sacrificing for the sun to rise the next day, when we had accurate calendars, and we knew about solstices and equinoxes and all these different things. Why would we sacrifice someone for the sun to rise the next day? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I hear that. Which again, there's like so every time you say like there's like all these things I want to try to like unpack, and then I get lost. But I mean, I want to bring it back to the blanket, the art a little bit.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we get some people to have some questions. So again, we're here. We want to talk about the defend blanket. I'm going to bring that video back up, but in that conversation too, we wanted to talk about art and just sort of like just have a conversation. I'm less
I
really
mean,
about
even
talking.
even the blanket itself, what it symbolizes. Um, if a mural were to go up in a public place, it could be, painted over or damaged. But once it goes on to an item like a blanket, like, what are they
Mhm.
gonna snatch your blanket? You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that I think art has the ability to do. It reaches new plateaus and new forms of expression. And for me, it's is very important that we are able to represent these stories through as many roads and paths as possible. Everybody knows Pendleton blankets, but obviously it's not owned by Native people, and a lot of the profits are not going to Native communities, and a lot of the patterns on there, they have names like the Chief Joseph blanket. Like, is that benefiting anybody from Chief Joseph's reservation or homeland? No, it's not. But now that there's alternatives to that, like 8th generation, I think that's amazing. That needs to happen. We need to carve these new ways where we are the ones that are benefiting from this. We always talk about that, like, how do we put ourselves in these conversations, in these tables? The whole Dakota Access Pipeline, like, Native people were not taken into consideration for that. Like, why aren't we in those conversations? And that's great that now women are becoming part of this government, even though we don't believe in the system, like we said it before, but we believe in these women. And they're perhaps not going to make the best choices either, because the system has been designed way before they even came into existence. So they're not going to change things, in 4 years or 8 years. It's going to take time, but at least we have women in there now that are going to make this change.
For sure. And I like that you say that, and I hope that people, we're all, I think that a lot of people are always in tension and trying to do good within the world that we're in, but the world that we're in also it's affecting us and the decisions we're able to make, and it's putting us in positions that aren't good. It's putting us in positions that the choices are impossible. I think I talk about that in something I was writing once, but just like you just face with impossible decisions and moments of your life, and a lot of it just has to do with the structure of what we're in, And I was just saying, oh, geez, I totally forgot what I was going to say next. Anyways, no, okay, we're going to have a break. My brain's frying, a lot of good information. Thank you so much for being with us, Votan. We're going to take about a 5-minute break. If everyone wants to get comfy, I'm trying to make sure I have this right. It's possible this is not going to work out. We'll never know. So we're gonna take a 5-minute break. If you have questions, please go ahead and load them into the chat. We're gonna come back, try to answer a few questions, and then we're gonna call it a night. Again, go to indiancollective.org. I think in the chat you're probably getting dropped a link if you are interested in this blanket. You can go check it out. And I have one, and also Votan, I don't know if you know, like it's already held infants. It's already held babies.
Send some pictures, man. I want to see that.
I know. I was supposed to put them in here. I'm so sorry.
Baby, just the blanket.
Yeah, so I totally was supposed to put some of those pictures in here.
Yeah, you got to share that. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. So let's make sure I have this. So if everyone just bear with me for one moment, I'll make sure I do this right. There's a part of me that thinks it's not going to be correct. We'll see. Nope. Give me 1 second. Maybe. Oh wait, I gotta do this.
To our relatives.
No. This is live, so everyone knows it's the real deal. And so sometimes we're gonna go into it, and I'm literally I'm mixing it into here, so it's all good. I got this over here. Don't worry.
5 minutes are gonna be up.
I know, we're not gonna get to it. Honestly, I'm a little tired. I've been in the streets the last few days, and I can see somebody asking in the chat if we're going to be out today, and I'll just have to assess how I'm feeling. It's definitely been a lot. So,
well, I'm proud of you, man, because you're juggling so many things on lack of sleep.
Oh, I get to get sleep. I'm trying my best to get sleep. Everyone out there in the movement, you got to sleep. Remember, every time you don't sleep, it slows down your decision-making processes, slows down like your health, how much you're healing. This puts you in a bad situation. So even though things are exciting, you need to make sure you're getting sleep. That's my little movement thing for you. But here's Sapa. We'll be right back in about 5 minutes.
All right.
So we're here in solidarity all throughout the system of injustice and white supremacy. You'll find Indigenous people. And we also want to remind that as we do this work, we're standing in solidarity with our black brothers and sisters against this racist system of oppression. We have fought hard and long time to protect our land, and will not continue to stand for our land to be stolen from us and desecrated. So we stand at this time, at this moment in this history, and we continue on a struggle that our ancestors who have come before have fought for. Whose land? Whose land?
Your voice will not be silenced. We will walk upon Trump tomorrow. We'll say enough. We'll take back this stolen land, one rock at a time. Starting with Mount Rushmore, and it's not gonna end. It will never end as long as we have breath in our lungs, as long as we have blood in our bodies. We will keep marching. We will keep shouting. We will keep protesting. No, protecting. Because this is our land, and we're gonna take it back, and there's nothing they can do about it.
Our common enemy is white supremacy and systematic racism. We've seen what happened to our black brothers and sisters. We know that the movement for Black Lives and Black Lives Matter stands with us as Indigenous people as we collectively fight for our liberation, for the collective movement for our people. And our goal is not just to resist. Our goal is to radically transform this country so that it works for everybody.
This is sacred land. This is Lakota land. This is my land. I can stand right here.
The aggression today was come out from you guys.
We want our land back.
We ain't going nowhere. This is our land. It's been our land for thousands of years.
To the Bennington County Sheriff's Department, to the Highway Patrol, this is a warning to each and every one of you. You are unlawfully on our land without consent of our tribal leaders in violation of our treaties. You have an opportunity now that we're giving you to stand down and vacate our land. Whose land? Whose land?
This is the land of the Osheti Shakoi. And we're prepared to stand our ground. Today has been a proud day to be Lakota. Today has been a proud day to be Indigenous. We shut down Mount Rushmore for 3 hours. And we did it in a good way. We felt that power from our ancestors. So Wopila Tonka Achichi Apolo to each and every one of you. Hands behind your back! Hands behind your back! Hands behind your back! I'm not doing it. For our people, for our Black Hills, for the Osheti Shakoi.
All right, everybody. Thanks for taking that break with us. I hope you enjoyed that. It was made by our creative producer, Willie White. Just incredible work. Let's see. We have some questions here. They're going to be thrown at me. Here we go. First question is, I'm waiting for it to get sent to me. I'm like, if I talk real slow. First question is that, no, I was kidding. That'll be good. People are asking if I'm going to cover the protests tonight. They're saying cover it. It's a statement, as though I'm not a human being who has to make choices over my life. And so the internet's like that. I see you, I understand, but just realize like I'm a human being who has to eat food and drink water and sleep, and so like you can't just tell people to go do stuff. People have to check in on themselves. Yeah, this one. Okay, what advice can you give a young Indigenous artist starting to find their voice and place in modern day?
Wow, it's a good question. Man, I'd say, like, just be true to yourself before you try to be true to anybody or any movement, and be happy with what you do. I usually tell youth that I guide myself by the 3 C's. right? Which is to be creative. That's something that happens naturally to me from doing it so much. So be creative, um, but also be clever with your creativity, because that makes you stand out from what everybody else is doing. So be creative, be clever, but also, and most importantly, be content. Be happy with what you do, because if you're not doing it because you love to do it, you'll become a slave of your own creation.
That's real. That's real. And like as a creative person, like I don't know. There's so many different ways to try to survive, but a lot of it feels like a trap to me. Like where it's like suddenly I'm like a creator who's making things on socials or whatever, and I just every day I have to make this many things in order to stay relevant. And then it's just like it just gets really hard, and so yeah, just being really I like that. That's being really true to yourself. And another thing too, I would say is like, if I'm okay if I say it, it's like, don't fear form. That's all. I know when I grew up as like I'm a writer. I'm like a poet. I would think I'm never gonna write a sonnet. It's like that's just too constricted. But I think forms are nice, and now I look at form and it allows you to like play within it, and you're playing within this giant conversation of people who have used that form, and
Mm.
it can be empowering too. Anyways, um, another question. You ready?
Sure.
All right, here we go. If you could collab with any Indigenous leader, activist, or artist, past or present, who would it be, and what would that collab be?
Wow. I like that. Huh?
Yeah, there you go. Oh, very think hard. Someone out here is writing this down. Like this.
I've had on my mind um, Chief Raoni. I don't know if you guys are aware of him, but if you are not, please look him up. He is a very powerful indigenous man, chief from the nation of the Kayapo tribe, I believe. In the Amazon, he was fighting against um, the damming of the Amazon. And I saw a video of him years ago. Sting, the musician, hangs out with him all the time and like visits or whatever and helps them in their struggle down there. But I saw a video of Chief Raoni that really like shook me to my core. You might be able to find it on YouTube, but he was talking to the developers of the dam, and they filmed him and it's on YouTube. And he said, if you come here and you defy us and not acknowledge us as a people, the original people that are caretakers of this place, and you violate that, we will kill you. He said, there are 300 warriors ready to die for this land. So it's rare to hear people say that nowadays. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, this is like listening to Sitting Bull or Crazy Horse or, you know what I mean? All these different warriors from the past. So I love to like somehow get involved and do some collaborative work with Chief Raoni.
All right, that was me sending it. That's as it come around. You'll see. You'll see. We got one more. We got more questions. I don't know how many more we want to do. Maybe a couple
We
more or
can do
one
whatever
more.
you want, man.
I know. I got to decide if what I'm gonna do with my night after this. So, but what does the art process for murals look like specifically? I like reading stuff like this. Yes. Specifically, the land back mural. That's my favorite one. Thanks. So
So it all depends, like what's happening at the moment in our being, I guess, how we're feeling, what is feeling inspirational, or perhaps what I feel at that time needs a voice lent to it so that it could resonate further. You know what I mean? And the whole, land back, I truly admire you guys for what you guys are doing with that movement. And um, we felt that it resonates it resonates everywhere on this continent and perhaps the world, because colonialism has affected the world entirely. So for that land back piece, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I was just driving to Las Cruces, it's 3 hours from here, and I wanted to do something that represented an indigenous person from that area, but I also wanted to address an issue that is very current, and it was the land back issue at that moment. So I started creating patterns at the bottom, without really knowing what image I was going to use. But I kind of I wasn't feeling it, so I buffed it, like, basically like 8 hours of work and like probably 20 spray cans into it. I buffed it and I started all over again. And eventually, the actual piece that was supposed to be there ended up being there.
Yeah, for a second, I was trying to show it. There it is. I pulled it up right where you were talking.
I mean, and
Land back.
the whole wheat pasting thing too, you have to take into consideration that they're what's that word? They're not meant to stick around forever. You know what I mean? Impermanent.
Oh yeah.
Impermanent.
Permanent.
You know what I mean? So hopefully the land back movement is impermanent when we start getting some land back.
Right on. Oh, thanks for the love. I see some love in the chat. Thanks for the time, James. Other people. There's somebody like literally yelling at me to like start dancing for them as though I'm supposed to like pick up my gear. Like, go do this for me. That's not weird. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Like literally own human being. But anyways, what is there any other questions? First of all, I'm asking my team here really quick. Thanks to all the NDN team in the background too. We have Steph, Sarah. I think Jordan designed this soundtrack we're listening to, and Willie White, also has made a lot of the graphics you're seeing. So I think I want to say a big thank you to them. And again, I just want to bring people back. We're going to play this blanket thing one last time here. And then I think we're going to go. So everyone just brace yourself. I know you probably enjoyed the conversation a lot. I know I did. And it's going to be hard.
If people want to ask us questions too, they can contact us.
Yeah.
I could plug in the email address. It's NSRGNTS brand@gmail.com. If you guys have any questions, any concerns, any collaborations, any ideas, like we're always open to dialoguing with people. If you guys want to check out a lot more of the work that we have, that we do, on the streets, whether it's murals or street art, you can check out the collective at Insurgents, NSRGNTS on Instagram, on Facebook. Right now, the hottest thing out there is TikTok, which is our favorite right now. So you can check us out at Insurgents, at TikTok. We do a lot of like straight up graffiti, old school style, just running up and blessing things.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you want to check that out as well. We also have a website if you guys want to help the movement. We sell a lot of items, and with a lot of our funding, we fund street projects and murals. Last year we did 5 murals, and they were basically out of pocket because we felt that we needed to address a lot of these things. So it's great when we're blessed with being paid for the murals, and we use a lot of that funding again for funding other projects, going to other countries where they don't really have the resources to pay us. So we're able to pay our bills and then go and paint something out there and then be able to come back and still have our bills be on point.
So the people are saying, what's up? And do you have any specific projects coming up?
Yes, we have the Fend mural that should be going up summertime in Rapid City at the NDN Collective headquarters. You guys call it headquarters? I've been calling it headquarters.
HQ. I don't know.
That we're in the talks of working on a new design with Winona again. We've paired up with Winona quite a few times from Honor the Earth, and we're working on one for her. What is it? The hemp farm. Yeah, we're going to create a design for her hemp farm, and also do another mural with her. So we have that, and then we have some large scale wheat paste that we're supposed to be doing in Phoenix as well in the next couple of weeks. We're also going to Oak Flat, and we're going to have some talks there with Wensler from the director of Oak Flat.
Somebody said they just grabbed some stuff from the Insurgents.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
He was yelling at me.
What?
Well, we also have, I said, Leah's yelling at me. We're also doing a mural here in Albuquerque at the end of this month with the youth. It's called the Abya Yala mural, which is very basic, very kawaii, cute. but it represents like the whole ideology of bridging the entire land back together. And that's a term that was coined by the indigenous people of Central America. I believe it was Nicaragua. Abya Yala represents the entire continent when it's together. So we're going to paint something that kind of tells the story of the North and the South.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Louis. They're saying they're proud of the 8th generation for working with you and us, the Indian Collective. All right, well, I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to say goodbye, Votan. I'm going to cut away to a single with me, I think is what we call it. And then I'm going to say goodbye. And then, yeah, if you all are interested in this blanket that we're talking about, parts of the conversation, I know it kind of traveled here to there. You can go to shop.indiancollective.org for that blanket. It's also right there on the page, real big letters, and it's gone. Also, if you want to contact Votan at Insurgents brand NSRGNTS BRAND at gmail.com. I'm going to read it again. Why not? NSRGNTS BRAND at gmail.com. Insurgents brand at gmail.com.
Or they
Thanks
can
for
go
being.
to, they can go to the website, which is NSRGNTS.com as well.
Okay.
And I guess somebody says, I guess Leah saw a question. People want to know who's on the blanket.
Yeah.
And we just like to tell people that it's all of you. It's all the women that are out there doing this work, but also the women that are home that are taking care of kids, because they also have a voice. So I took from different elements from what I've seen throughout my life, throughout Indian country, all the women that I've seen, to basically come up with this piece.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for being here again. And
You guys.
yeah, we'll keep in touch, and I think I'll probably be seeing you in South Dakota, because I'll come visit. So, all right, thank you so much.
All
We'll
right, thank
talk
you guys. Thank you.
soon. All right, let me see if I can do this.
To our
Well, thank you so much,
relatives,
everybody who joined us. I gotta take the audio off of that thing. Again, my name is. No, it didn't work. Give me a second. Give me a second. I almost did it right, and then I didn't. No, I'm on here. Okay. Again, my name is Lorenzo Serna. I'm the director of tactical media here at the Indian Collective. We want to have this conversation with you all about our defense blanket that we did in collaboration with Votan and the 8th generation. And I hope you all check it out. It's a beautiful thing. I've put it on me. It feels good. And then also, it was a read for stuff. Just hang out all night, but I think I'm going to call it a night too. And thanks again. Don't forget to check out IndianCollective.org and do the old like, follow, and share if you can, and then subscribe. And remember, like, we always need your help to get information out. We are always fighting against algorithms. We're always trying to get through echo chambers, and so all that's on all of you. Kind of sorry, I'm kind of sounds bad, but so if you have the chance, don't be afraid to post this places, share this places. All of it helps, and we want to get our voices into as many spaces as we can, so we can tell our own stories. So thank you for helping us with that. Again, so Serna, thank you for being here, and we'll talk soon. That's fine. It would have been so good if I had that all like perfectly planned out. I didn't. Just give me a second. Let me try it. Okay, I'll do it again. Where is it? Anyways, it was great. I'll talk to you next time. Peace.